I'm going to go ahead and get started. Thank you so much for being here today. I'm Jessica Wingert. I'm the program lead for ClimateCAP based here at Duke's Fuqua School of Business. We're thrilled to have you with us today as we discuss using the ROSI framework to build the business case for sustainability. Thanks to those of you who are joining us live and those who will be watching the recording in the coming days. We're really excited to jump into this conversation today, but I'm just going to take a minute to introduce ClimateCAP since we have a number of attendees today who are new to ClimateCAP. Here's a quick snapshot of ClimateCAP more broadly. We were founded with the mission to prepare tomorrow's business leaders, many of you, today's MBAs, to understand and respond to the climate challenge by mainstreaming that climate conversation in business school. ClimateCAP was founded and this continues to be led by us here at Fuqua, but we are a global partnership of now 49 different business schools. And we work really closely with the staff and faculty at those schools on a number of different initiatives, including our MBA Summit, our fellowship program, and this MBA Academy virtual learning series. And if you haven't yet signed up for our mailing list, please be sure that you do to stay up to date on all of these different kinds of programs. I just mentioned our 49 partner schools, and I wanted to start by highlighting some of the schools which support ClimateCAP at the leading and supporting partner level. We want to thank them for making this program and a lot of our other initiatives possible. And for those of you who are prospective MBAs, I know there's a few of you joining us today as well. You can check out the list of all 49 partner schools and link directly to their websites from our website. I wanted to briefly talk about the MBA Summit since it's a very timely announcement. Hopefully you've heard of the MBA Summit by now, but this is our flagship event every year, bringing together over 400 MBA students from around the country and world to network and learn about climate and business. We are 2 weeks out exactly today from the next summit, which will be hosted by Berkeley Haas starting on February 28th. And tickets for that event are very sold out at this point in time, but we will be sharing live stream information, and you can log into that from our website. And we've also going to be recording a lot of those sessions, and they'll be available on our website after the event. The website has the agenda and the list of all of the confirmed speakers, so it's definitely worth taking a look to see. It's going to be a really great event. Next, I want to briefly highlight the ClimateCAP MBA Fellowship, which empowers our fellows to become the next generation of climate leaders and change makers. We were really excited to welcome an expanded cohort of 16 fellows for 2025. And key elements of that fellowship include a learning and development sessions, networking, as well as self-directed project work where the students design and implement a climate action project over the course of the year. They also receive mentorship and attend lots of cohort building activities. You can find out information about this cohort as well as our previous cohorts and their projects on our website, as well as any overall program information. And the application for that process starts in the fall. So we, around October of this year, will be looking for applications for our next cohort. And lastly, I wanted to mention that our MBA Academy virtual learning series, which you're here for today, continues throughout the academic year. We do have recordings of all of our previous conversations available on our website, and they cover a variety of different climate and business topics, and they can be a great primer to get up to speed on a lot of different things. We'll take a break for the series next month because of the summit, but we'll be back with another MBA Academy later this spring, and we hope to see you there. But now the reason you're all here today, and that's to hear from Chisara. Chisara Ehiamare is the Senior Research Lead of Return on Sustainability Investment, ROSI, at the NYU Stern Center for Sustainable Business, where she oversees ROSI research and partnerships. Chisara has over 20 years of experience building socially, economically, and environmentally sustainable supply chains. She has designed and implemented procurement and sourcing management strategies across multiple industries in her role as Senior Assurance Director with Field to Market, Vice President of Certification at Fairtrade USA, and as a consultant with A.T. Kearney and Accenture. She holds a Bachelor of Business Administration from the University of Michigan and an MBA from the Fuqua School of Business at Duke University. And with that, I would like to turn it over to you, Chisara.
Thank you so much. And I'm just going to share my screen and get things started. Can you see my screen?
Not yet.
Can you see it now?
Okay, sorry, go ahead. Yep.
Great. Okay, hi everyone. My name is Chisara Hiamare, and I'm the Senior Research Lead for Return on Sustainability Investment here at NYU Stern Center for Sustainable Business. And today we are going to be going through the Return on Sustainability Investment framework and methodology. We refer to it as ROSI very fondly. And we are also going to, by the end of the session, identify some tools and resources that you can use to deepen your understanding. So one of the, I guess, starters for the research that we do here at the center that's focused on ROSI is built on the fact that there are numerous studies that show that there is a positive correlation between corporate performance on material ESG issues and corporate financial performance. And this is a correlation. We seek to understand more about causal relationships that may exist. And then what we found, however, is that many individual corporations are not tracking the financial returns on their sustainability strategies. And so we are seeking to fill that gap to have a deeper understanding of how sustainability creates value and, more importantly, how to quantify the value that's being created. Now, if you're on this call, you're familiar with at least some sustainability strategies and have some understanding of how sustainability strategies may be undertaken within a company. And also, hopefully, may have some thoughts already about how sustainability can drive better financial performance. Some examples that we pulled together here just for discussion would be emissions reduction strategy. So if a company has a focus on reducing energy, that requires improved energy management, which leads to reduced energy cost. If there are water conservation or water reduction targets, those can lead to lower risks of shutdown, particularly in areas that may be water constrained, which can have the avoided cost of very costly factory shutdowns. Any sustainable sourcing practices can also help with resiliency and stability in supplier relationships, which can lead to a reduction in friction and reduction in turnover costs. And then another area that there's a lot of talk about, and we do have research, which I can point you to at the end of the presentation, is just around the ability for more sustainable products to meet the needs of an evolving consumer and customer who are increasingly seeking more sustainable products. So those are some of the ways that sustainability drives performance. And so the ROSI framework is a way to approach this, again, knowledge that sustainability does create value and helps us really think through the value that's being created by thinking about value drivers. And it's built on the premise that when a company embeds sustainability, both the risks and the opportunities within their strategy and decision-making, and embedding meaning not just a bolt-on sustainable product, but truly embedding it within the fabric of the organization, that they will see improvements in a number of areas or value drivers, which you can see here under the blue pillar that has the title Improve in the middle of the screen. And so those value drivers are risk management, stakeholder engagement, operational efficiency, talent management, supplier relations, media coverage or earned media, customer loyalty, sales and marketing, and innovation. And when companies are reviewing these value drivers to figure out for any given sustainability practice where there may be benefits associated with them, and when they monetize those benefits, they will find that they can drive revenue growth and greater profitability, higher corporate valuation, and then ultimately delivering quantifiable business value and also positive societal impact. And so that's the framework. And just to give some more context to some of the value drivers that we went over, We have here on the top operational efficiency. That is one of the areas that we have found in our research where it is not necessarily very easy, but it is easiest typically to find benefits. And that is optimizing corporate and supply chain efficiencies to lower cost and increase profits. Risk management are benefits that encourage risk mitigation and resilience within the value chain. In some cases, these are avoided costs. And for those of you on the webinar who may be accountants, you may say, okay, avoided costs, those aren't dollars in the door or dollars out of the door. However, from a strategy and decision-making perspective, we strongly encourage that these are taken into consideration for decision-making, and we have found that many companies are doing so. Supplier relations are benefits that improve relationships with company and with its suppliers. Talent management is are benefits that can help with attracting high-quality internal talent or external talent, and then retaining that talent once they join a company. And then you'll see others. One other that I will, a couple of others that I will point out are sales and marketing. And so that's where there's an increase in the volume of sales through brand and marketing policies. And then innovation is one that we typically talk about as being the ability to create new revenue streams based on more sustainable products or business models. Okay, so all of this, of course, as I talk through it, may sound pretty straightforward, pretty understandable. But the reality is that most companies and investors are not monetizing the return on sustainability investment. And there are many reasons for this. We have found that the availability and quality of sustainability data may be lacking. There may be a significant amount of data that relates to compliance or reporting. However, the data that would be needed to track and understand the benefits across departments for sustainability initiatives oftentimes is not there. Sustainability strategies oftentimes will be set without tying them to returns from the beginning of the strategy setting process. I think that is changing, but that's something that would mean that the data isn't being tracked and isn't available. Strategy and execution may sit within different business units. And one that we hear often with our research partners is that benefits may be intangible or difficult to monetize, or some of the benefits, as I said earlier, may be avoided costs. And so just questions about how to value that. And finance needs to have a role in these calculations. And even though their role is evolving to include more around disclosures, we would love to see this area evolve even further to include sustainability value creation. And then finally, we've heard some difficulty in being able to monetize resilience that can be created by sustainability investments. So what are we to do about it? And what I'm going to walk you through is the ROSI methodology and the collaboration process. And so typically when we are working with companies, we're helping them go through this five-step process. This is something that you are going to be able to do on your own, either, for those of you who may be working while you're getting your MBA, you could do it for companies where you're working today. You can apply this to your thinking around projects, and you can apply this in the future. The first step is identifying material sustainability issues and strategies. Most companies in 2025 have been through various iterations of a materiality assessment. And so that first step may have been, it may already be there. And then it's going from understanding at the strategy level what the strategy is, and then taking that down to the next step, which is what are the practices and sub-practices that are actually being implemented in service of those strategies. And it's only through really getting into the practice level that you're able to then go through the process of defining benefits, quantifying those benefits, which is step 4, and then step 5, monetizing those. And that's where you're trying to figure out, are you looking for a 5-year NPV, a 10-year NPV? Is it something that you just want to look at on an annual basis? But that's kind of the process that we step through. We show this, we're very proud of the partnerships that we have. And then also we show this to show that ROSI can be implemented and has been implemented across a variety of industries. It may look different, we found, depending on the industry, but there is broad applicability. So hopefully for everyone who's on the call, you'll be able to use this in the industry that you choose to go into. So in practice, again, here's the 5-step process. We're going to use an example in the automotive industry and take you through each step so that you can understand how we've applied this. After this, I'll give you some examples in other industries as well, and then we'll close with another kind of step through in one of the circularity areas. So the step 1 for automotive, and these were actually partners that we worked with a few years ago. The first step was identifying the material sustainability strategies and getting an understanding of what was actually being done in service of sustainability within a company. Again, as I said, your company has probably already done this, in which case you would be able to go down to the next step, which is identifying the related practices. So just picking one of the areas, one of the sustainable strategies that we saw in the automotive industry, and actually we see across the board, is improve waste management. You can't just go straight to quantifying improve waste management until there's an understanding of the variety of practices that are being undertaken in service of improving waste management. And so in this case, one of the areas that we researched was around recycling paint and solvents. And then the benefits, the way to think about going through and identifying benefits is to go through that list of value drivers. So if you think back to the ROSI snake chart that I showed at the beginning, the areas within underneath the improvement pillar are those benefits. And so going systematically through the value drivers, asking, are there any risk management benefits associated with recycling paint and solvents? Any stakeholder engagement benefits, operational efficiency benefits, et cetera. We have found that, I don't think we've even had one case yet where there were benefits that were significant where we saw all of the value drivers, but we're really just looking at the most significant value drivers for your particular practice. And so what we identified in this particular project was that the benefits associated with recycling paint and solvents were reduced costs for wastewater and toxic waste disposal, reduced costs for paint and solvents, and revenue for recycled materials. And so you had cost reductions on one side, but then we also saw that there was additional revenue that was generated with being able to sell recycled materials. And so then the next step of them is to go about quantifying benefits. And this is where, when we do this with our research partners, this is where it can get a little hairy because the data, I would say across the board, is not found in one place. Oftentimes the data doesn't exist in exactly the format in which we would like it. However, in interviewing, in going and explaining what it is that we're trying to achieve, and in talking to the different departments, we're able to identify data. And so we point this out for a couple of reasons. One, the data is probably there somewhere, and it's just about going and building the relationships, depending on where you sit, to be able to access the data. And then two, for those of you who may have an interest in sustainability, but may be going into other functional areas, kind of either as on a path towards sustainability careers, or just because you want to be able to apply sustainability within a particular department or functional area. All of these areas can have an impact on sustainability through data collection or through being able to help. And so I'll take maybe one of the least obvious, human resources. Human resources would be an area where if human resources starts to track information around the interest level of current employees and sustainability, and understanding how important sustainability may be to current employees, or during the interview process for new employees, understanding how important sustainability may be to them. That's a way that human resources can help to understand and ultimately make a business case for sustainability within a company, by showing that there's an impact on new and existing talent within the organization. Legal teams, it's understanding what legislation may be afoot that can impact sustainability. Procurement, understanding costs and benefits of foregoing the procurement of virgin material for and being able to use recycled material. So this data lives in lots of different places, and if you are working in lots of different places, there are ways for you to impact sustainability. So step 5, and this is the monetization, and this is where you take the information that you've gathered. It's very helpful at this point to collaborate with the finance team to understand the best way to monetize this. And in this case, what we found, as I said earlier, is that we had reduction in cost and also the generation of additional revenues. You'll see here we have a 1-year earning EBIT that we calculated. There are other ways. I think I have some examples later on where we've done an NPV analysis, which may be necessary for some of the longer term NPV analyses that may be necessary for some of the types of sustainability investments that will be made. But this we determined was the most relevant for this type of project. And so our results showed cost savings due to lower spend on virgin materials, increased net revenues from sales to recyclers, as I mentioned earlier, reductions in water costs by using recycled water. This is something that operations was able to quantify, and then energy savings due to lower use of energy in recycled materials versus virgin materials. And finally, a reduction in waste disposal cost. And so if you're using more versus throwing it away, there's savings there. So that was just a simple example going steps 1 through 5. So I'll give you a few cases here that we've done, and then do another last 1 through 5 just to make sure that it's kind of etched in your memory, and then we'll take questions at the end. So we've done a variety of cases and just wanted to highlight a few themes and some of the drivers and what we found. So with employee satisfaction, safety and well-being, some of the drivers there would be productivity improvements, retention, reduced risks of employee lawsuits, reduced insurance costs, and reputational and customer satisfaction benefits. The particular case that we looked at was with REI, and they had a sustainability program that was designed around days outside for their employees. And in this case, we were able to see net benefits of $34 million annually for looking at reduced turnover and hiring costs, And again, we were able to do this because their HR department was collecting this information, and then also increase productivity amongst high performance. It's net because we then subtracted the mission-aligned investments that included paid time off days. And so that was a research project that was aided significantly by the fact that the HR department was already collecting some of this data. Another area, and I mentioned this earlier, was just around sustainable sourcing. Some of the drivers there are that it can increase market share and premiums, reduce reputational, market and regulatory risk. There are, if there's the use of third-party certification, there could be the ability to make credible sourcing claims. I always stress that they should be credible. And then community support and license to operate benefits can also be seen. And here we monetized some work that was done by McCormick, a project at Origin, where we looked at sales and marketing, lower cost of capital, risk management, and earned media benefits that were estimated to be $6 million in 2019. For the earned media, because I think the others may be more obvious, the earned media is the ability to figure out for media mentions how much the company would have had to have spent if they had put out these media mentions on their own. And so that's something that we see. Maybe more of a first mover type of, in terms of being able to maximize, but still something that we were able to see. And then circularity. So circularity and the waste management or waste disposal example that I showed you relates to circularity. Circularity can drive operational efficiency, increase market share, and there could be premiums and loyalty as well. Reduced supply chain risk by being able to close the loop and reuse products. And then also there can be the ability to make sustainability claims and earn media for innovative circularity projects. And here's one just on ThreadUp. For those of you who may use ThreadUp, it's a company where you can purchase used items. Actually, you can purchase some with tags as well. I'm showing that I've used ThreadUp before, but it's an opportunity that our research partner Reformation was able to work with ThreadUp on a partnership program that brought in profit for customers to send in used Reformation clothing. There was incremental Reformation profit from a new customer base. There was a coupon, and those new customers were able to take advantage of that. There was a customer acquisition cost reduction, and so they looked at a typical new customer cost acquisition versus having this happen through ThreadUp, and there was an advantage there. And then increased in earned media. They did this some time ago and before it became more commonplace. And then the last, and I'm just checking the time here, the last example here, and I'll go back and we'll go into more detail on this particular example, just to go through the methodology steps a bit more again, is an example where we worked with Advocate Health on the use of reprocessed medical devices. And in this case, we were able to find operational efficiency and risk management benefits through using reprocessed medical devices. And so this would be in an example would be instead of having a pulse oximeter that would go on your finger and test oxygen levels and pulse, and you're taking it off and then throwing it in the rubbish. Instead, this would be finding ways to use it, have it collected, have it sterilized, and then have the hospital buy it back. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. but the value creation that we were able to assess was a 10-year NPV of 20.3 million, and some additional benefits that we did not quantify, but we know were realized were around greenhouse gas emissions, waste reduction, and some improvements in operational efficiency as well. Okay. Okay, so we're almost at the point where we're going to have questions, and just wanted to pick up again on the 5-step process for using the ROSI methodology, and talk a little bit more about kind of a more complex circular solution and how one goes about understanding how to monetize some of the benefits there. So many of you, I'm sure if all of you have probably heard of a variety of circular solutions for products. What becomes really important in assessing and thinking through the benefits is really having a deep understanding of the mechanics that are involved, and kind of the thinking behind how a circular solution should work. What are the different incentives along the way that will enable a circular solution to continue to work, and then who's required to do what at what stage to ensure that that there's a good understanding of the circular solution, because that understanding and the stability of the circular solution will have a great impact on what the ongoing benefits will be for a solution. I didn't fill this out, but this is something that we went through. This is the kind of template that you might use to go through and think about the benefits. So again, the strategy, in this case, we have waste reduction. You think about the practice, what is being done in service of that strategy. You go through the value drivers list. And so that's the 9 value drivers. You think through, is there an operational efficiency benefit? Is there a talent management benefit? And then you define what that benefit is, think about how you would monetize the benefit, and then figure out where the data lives within your company. So again, something that you can do today for any given sustainability strategy that you may have underway. And then another kind of after going through that step 5 is the monetization. I'm showing you this. I know it's an eye chart. It's really just to show you, one, how some of this may actually look. In this case, going through and looking at different categories of products, looking at operational efficiency and risk management, and projecting out for a given number of years, which you can determine by talking to your finance organization and others. And this is an example of one of the many tools that we have that are freely available on our website that can serve as a starting point for understanding how to monetize a variety of practices within a variety of industries. And finally, on this one, when we monetized this for a hospital, we showed that there were 13 potential benefits across a number of areas. We monetized for, and I think it's really important also to understand, you'll probably find a lot of interesting potential benefits. It's really important to focus on the most important ones, the ones that that would be the highest in terms of cost, the ones where frankly, where you are able to find data for. And then also where you think it really makes sense for the attribution of the benefit to the particular practice. So an example would be, are nursing staff staying in a hospital because of reprocessed products? Probably not for just that reason. However, there are, we did find that many clinical individuals did see waste as being something that was problematic, that they wanted to reduce. And so there is a tie, but not something that we monetize, because we recognize that that was just a small part. So what we did recognize here was operational efficiency, so reduction in procurement cost, reduction in waste disposal cost, and risk management, which was the reduction of risk of supply disruption, which many hospitals did experience during the pandemic, in part because in some cases they had not approved circular products for use, and then finally reduced emissions. So we saw 21.3 million in NPV. So that's it in terms of the content. I did say we would have some resources. So everything that I've talked about and more is available on our website. There are Excel tools that can be utilized. We have monetization metrics for food and agriculture, for apparel, for healthcare, and a number of thought leadership pieces from the team, including how to talk to your CFO about sustainability and other insights. And then you'll see here also the Sustainable Market Share Index. You can take a look. That's being updated as we speak. But that's information, point of sale information for, I believe, 36 product categories that show that, for example, sustainably marketed products are growing at twice the rate of conventional products. And you can see here many sustainably marketed products command a premium in the marketplace. So that's it from me. And I will take questions. I can stop sharing.
Well, thank you so much for that. I think what you're showing is really making a lot of people think based on the number of questions that are coming in.
Okay, I'm sorry. Everyone, I leave those to the end because of the distraction. But yes, we'll try to get to as many as possible. I wanted to leave time for that.
We absolutely have time. And so I think, and I'll try and summarize because some of them are a little similar too, but this piece of data and filling in the gaps with data seems to be something that people are really interested in learning more about. As much information as you can share, but for areas where there's, benefits might vary widely or really hard to calculate, do you have algorithms that you recommend? Specifically, a lot of questions came up around calculating benefits around anything HR, so employee turnover, the other one, high performance. How are you trying to calculate those, or how are you working with companies to do that?
Yeah, so one plug first is that we have on our website, there is an employee well-being tool that you can go in and plug in information. And it does have the kind of information that you would plug in would be the size of the company, the number of employees, are they at headquarters or others? It's really more for a retail type of a setup, but I mean, just something that you can go in and look at. And yeah, so in terms of the data around turnover, this is where, you want to be obviously everything upfront with legal issues. But HR collects a lot of information that can include, in some cases, one would be employee attitudes around sustainability and how the company's performance on sustainability affects employee engagement. And so that would be the kind of situation where you're saying some of this retention is related, and you're not going to say it's 100% related to sustainability. You would have to discount that in some way, and that's kind of what you would do when you get into the actual monetization. But they can look at what an empty position would typically cost the company and kind of use those as plugins for calculating then the effect. The same would be on the flip side for a new employee going through the process of looking for a job and coming to the company. We've had some companies say, oh, wait a minute, we actually have started to track either the hits on our website around sustainability from candidates, candidate questions that come up around sustainability, and coming up with some kind of a way. And so, just as I said with the nurses, you can't say that it's 100% responsible for an employee staying or someone joining, but there are ways to discount that, working with your HR to develop that.
Great example, thank you. There's also some questions around just some data is hard to get or impossible to get. Do you have any suggestions or stories on how companies are able to overcome any barriers around getting quantitative financial data or other sources of data?
Yes. So the ideal situation is, one, the company has its own data, right? And if the company has its own data, great. If the company doesn't have its own data, one step to take is figure out what data it should start to collect and how, so that you can have that data going forward. The second tier would be research. And so we've had to do this sometimes, which is we then go to industry specific research that might give us proxies for data that's missing for the company. And then the next tier is if we can't find it for a specific industry, then we can just use an industry-wide, across industries, look for any proxies that may be useful to fill in for the data. Because you are going to find cases where you're probably not going to have data. And so in some cases, I'm thinking LCAs even. So for a company that produces a large number of SKUs, they may not have specific LCA data on each product. And so you then have to come up with proxies, understanding kind of by size or type, to be able to do like a greenhouse gas assessment and the avoided cost of needing to buy carbon credits, as an example.
Thank you. The avoided costs came up as well. Any information you can share about other ways to quantify things like avoided costs and how that impacts decision making?
Yeah, so I think one of other than the not dollars in the door, not dollars out of the door argument, which, is real, I think it's data that helps companies believe, I'm just saying this, believe that the situation that one seeks to avoid by the sustainability measure, that it's actually something that can happen. And so an example would be there's data that is released, I think, annually, that shows the number of billion-dollar disasters that we see in the U.S. Year over year, and how that is increasing significantly looking across time. And so being able to add in kind of context for believing that you're avoiding something that truly could come to pass is one way. I think another is looking at, and this is also avoided, but looking at a cost of inaction and understanding, what happens if, and kind of doing an outreach and talking to stakeholders and seeking to understand what happens if we don't do anything over the next, and I think of recycled bottles as an example. We have an example with Arca Continental, that which is the largest, I think, Coca-Cola bottler in Central and South America, and they calculated what they saw just through, again, outreach, understanding where the industry was going, if they did nothing and tried to stick to their commitments to using recycled PET in their bottles. And they saw that the price was going to increase significantly. And again, because this was research, because they talked to partners because it was an understanding. It was something that could be used as a decision-making strategic tool going forward, even if it didn't hit P&L for a given year.
Great. Thank you for that. There's a couple questions around maybe stakeholder management, I guess it would be the umbrella I'd put them in, but how have you had any challenges when it comes to working with organizations with kind of the ownership piece, which business unit gets credit for the savings or who's responsible for providing the data, especially when it might actually affect the way that they do their jobs? How do you help companies work through those kinds of issues?
Yeah, I'm smiling because yes, we do have some of those situations. One way is when we have our projects, we start off the projects bringing together a multi stakeholder team from within the organization to the table to say, here's what we're trying to monetize, here's what's, here's the information. And we bring them back again so that that conversation is happening amongst themselves. So it's kind of like they get to kind of talk about which numbers they think they contest, which numbers they think may be, too high or too low. Typical sales saying, well, we don't think that we won't be on the hook for the number that you've put in. We think the number is aggressive, or we don't think it's aggressive enough. We're hearing from our customers that we could actually get more. So I think it's just that bringing folks together, bringing departments together so that they can think about the assumptions and the associated monetizations that come from those, and get to a place where they're all comfortable.
Sure.
Or at least they agree. I mean, even if they
fair enough.
Yeah.
You mentioned that these different stakeholders are on the hook. So what does it look like after you've made these recommendations? How are companies trying to track the savings after they're kind of implementing these projects?
Yeah, so our hope when we do these projects is that a couple of things. One, that at a minimum, the company is thinking differently and more broadly about sustainability as new projects are implemented. And so instead of just saying, oh, we've got to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions, it's what's the value that we are creating by reducing our greenhouse gas emissions, and who do I need to talk to within the organization to ensure that we're able to realize that value. So that's at a minimum, a change in thinking and improved communication within the company. We also, and I think that there are additional steps that we can take, frankly, but we also hope to see that use of the tools and the process on an ongoing basis. And as you can see, there's many of the tools that we create go into a lot of detail, and so it's then making sure that there's training at the end of the project so that the finance team is trained on using the tools, but then also just the encouragement to continue to use this going forward.
Thank you. This question asks if you found any evidence of how de-risking a company through sustainability can lower their cost of debt. Do you have any thoughts on that?
We've had a lower cost of capital for project, if this is for project specific interventions. For sure, we've seen that. If it's anything broader than that, that's not something that I have researched.
Next question is kind of a lot of the companies you showed us on the screen were fairly large size companies that have, in theory, some more robust departments and data sets. Have you worked with any small or medium size enterprises using this, given kind of their resource constraints and just smaller size?
So we've had conversations with smaller companies, and the monetization may look different for some of them in a number of ways. So if if it's a new kind of company that was created and its mission and the way that it evolved was sustainable, so you're sustainable from the very beginning. We look at kind of what is industry standard versus the way that you've gone to market and kind of done that, try to lead them in doing that type of an analysis. In theory, yes, there may not be, as many departments or as many hands kind of in the work. It can make it easier to identify what you do have, which is something that could be a plus.
Great. I've got 2 more questions here. If anyone else has any questions, feel free to throw them into the QA. This is my question. I am curious to know where you've seen, from like an industry perspective, where you've seen the greatest adoption of the framework, and also where do you think there's the biggest opportunity for this to be implemented in the future?
So of course, because we've done the frameworks for food and agriculture and apparel, we're most familiar with those industries and the way that they're thinking about these topics. So just from our experience, there's a lot of work there. And then what was your second question?
Where do you think there's opportunity for this to go in the future?
I think there's opportunity just across the board, frankly, and I think that companies are increasingly thinking about ways to get this internal buy-in or internal funding for their sustainability initiatives, and companies are being asked to show that it adds value to the enterprise. And so again, in our research, we have found that it does, and we believe that all industries can start to do that if they're not already, just in thinking and then also in practice.
Thank you. And then, you're acting as a consultant effectively for a lot of these companies. So I'm curious if you could talk a little bit about your ROSI's business model. What does the relationship look like when you're working with these companies? Can you share anything as far as, how long it takes to perform each of these kind of projects, or maybe even steps within the process?
Yeah. So the first thing that I'll say is that we are an academic institution, and so all of the projects that we do are ultimately in service of the overall ROSI research imperative, which is to understand the value that's being created by sustainability and help businesses and industries make that business case. So that's kind of the backdrop for working with companies. Typically, we're working with them for 6 to 12 months. In some cases, it's longer, depending on what it is that we're researching. A lot of that time is spent looking for data, clarifying data, just so that everyone knows when you go and do this in your own company, you'll find that it can be tricky at first. And then also very importantly, each of these partners has agreed to and wants to be seen to contribute to the knowledge base of the industry. And so one of the requirements and what makes us different from a consultant is that we publish cases, we put information out for the industry to view. So that's a key difference as well.
Great, thank you. One more question came in. Can you talk a little bit about how ROSI either is similar or different to some of the other frameworks that are out there trying to calculate financial value of sustainability? This is obviously a much bigger issue that a lot of organizations are trying to address.
Yeah, so our focus and we have seen in our review that there are other approaches out there. Our focus is really trying to help the internal practitioners make that internal business case. We do have work in private equity that is a separate research area where we've built on what we've learned here, but we're applying it to private equity. But it's really that kind of tangible and intangible benefits and making that internal business case and bringing together internal stakeholders to help to institutionalize the uptake of these processes so that they're happening over time. So that would be one way that I would frame at least ours. I don't know if, how different, but that's really what we aim to do.
That's wonderful. Well, thank you so much. I'm going to wrap it up there. I know we're getting towards the top of the hour here, but I just can't thank you enough for sharing your expertise and time with us today. This is a fantastic tool that you've created and worked on here. And there were multiple comments that came through along the lines of, I'm absolutely going to use this going forward. So that's always really nice to hear. So we're going to wrap up. Thank you to Sarah for sharing this framework and all these real world examples of how it's being used. I am confident that the tool is going to be helpful to our attendees, both for the remainder of their academic careers and in their future careers as well. And as a reminder, everyone can access more information about the ROSI tool on the NYU Stern Center for Sustainable Business website. I'd also like to thank our attendees for joining us. As a reminder, there's a lot of different ways that you can get involved with ClimateCAP. Please make sure you're signed up for our newsletter, climatecap.org, to stay up to date with all of the Climate MBA news, events, and more. We've also got our different social media channels listed there as well. So again, thank you, Chisara. We really appreciate you. Thanks for being here today, and we'll see you all soon at a future MBA Academy.